Expectations were extremely high coming into this season for Quentin Grimes, especially as we saw him working out with NBA legends during the offseason, working on his shot during the offseason, trying to come off of screens better, and still working on that shot during the offseason. But unfortunately, during this season, we haven't seen any of those moves from Quentin Grimes. If anything, we've seen him have the lowest usage in terms of offense in his entire career. Defensively, he's still the same Quentin Grimes, but offensively, I think he's taken a step back. And now, according to an NBA insider, he actually notes that Quentin Grimes is listed as a trade piece for the New York Knicks this season and potentially moving forward. This insider also reveals Immanuel Quickley's price tag and what he wanted this offseason and what the Knicks were only willing to give him. All of this and so much more today. So be sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. Quentin Grimes potentially could be on the trading block. When I first read this from Michael Scotto, an NBA insider with Hoops Hype, I was absolutely floored. I remember a few years ago, Quentin Grimes was deemed the untouchable one when it was Donovan Mitchell on the table and that trade scenario was available. The Knicks would not make Quentin Grimes available for that trade. Now, that may have not made or break the trade, but the fact that he was made unavailable for that trade, everybody was considering him untouchable. And then you go back to even this past offseason. There were rumors that the Knicks were comfortable adding Quentin Grimes to a trade to get Paul George on this team. And now an NBA insider actually lists Quentin Grimes as a trade piece for the New York Knicks this season and moving forward for the Knicks to add that talent that they need to take that next step as a team. Per Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, he states the following. Other Knicks trade chips include Quentin Grimes and Evan Fournier, due to his $18.86 million contract, which is essentially an expiring contract due to a team option clause for next season. Fournier has been banished to the bench in all but one game for a brief cameo appearance. In years past, the Knicks shied away from including Grimes in trade talks with the Clippers for Paul George, the Bulls for Zach LaVine, and the Jazz during Donovan Mitchell trade talks. And the Hawks, who also inquired about him as well. Clearly, Grimes' offensive struggles has something to do with this as well too. Because if he was hitting three-pointer after three-pointer, or he was looking great on offense and on defense, nobody would be saying anything about him, his name coming up in trades, or anything like that. The problem is, he is looking extremely poor on offense this season. Now, I understand, on defense, he's one of the Knicks' best defenders still to this day. He still gives the Knicks extremely good defense. However, on offense, sometimes he's invisible. The three-point shot has not been running for him and has not been working at all for him. He is not cutting to the basket enough. And sometimes when he's cutting to the basket and he has the ball in his hands, he will pass the ball backwards, outside to either the person who passing the ball or somebody else. He's not even taking advantage of penetrating into the paint, which he should be able to do because he's bigger now. He should be able to take contact, finish, and go to the line. He needs to do that. He needs to be more aggressive, and his confidence needs a boost. And it just doesn't seem to be clicking right now with him with the starting unit. That's why I have been shouting from the rooftops to put Quentin Grimes on the bench, because I feel like he would thrive if he was not playing with the starters. Unfortunately, Tom Thibodeau has not done that. He's kept them with the starters. And with the starters, Quentin Grimes has not looked good. So I can understand why NBA insiders like Michael Scotto is listing Quentin Grimes with Evan Fournier's of the world in terms of being trade pieces for the Knicks for this season and potentially moving forward. We already know that during the offseason, Quentin Grimes' name came up in a potential trade offer for Paul George. And as I understand it, the only thing stopping that trade from going through was Paul George raising his hand and essentially stating, I want an extension, a max extension. And if he didn't say that or he didn't want that, I think right now Paul George would be a New York Knick. and I don't think Quentin Grimes would be a Knick. So if they were comfortable potentially adding him to that trade, and especially with him struggling right now, they could absolutely use him, potentially use Fournier, maybe a couple of other players and picks to try to get themselves that star player that New York has been starving for so long. Now, I don't know if that star player trade is going to happen during the season or it's going to happen during the offseason. If I had to put my money on it, given all the reports and all the interviews I've had with NBA insiders, all of them pegged the New York Knicks to make a major move this upcoming offseason. So that's where I'm going to put my eggs right now. It doesn't mean that they're not going to make an in-season trade. I just feel like if they even do that trade, it's not going to be a significant trade. It might be a piece. It might be a piece that can help them get better in the East, but I don't think it's going to be a piece that's going to help them contend. However, just because you need to make a major trade doesn't mean the minor trades you make doesn't help you. It all depends on what you give up and who that player is. But it is very interesting to note that the once deemed untouchable one in Quentin Grimes potentially may now find himself on the trading block. And if he continues to struggle with his offense and has little to no impact with the starters in that regard, I can absolutely see the New York Knicks potentially having him up there as a potential trade scenario candidate where they could move him to get another player on this team that could help move the needle more than Quentin Grimes is doing right now. This NBA insider also reveals Immanuel Quickley and what value he was looking for with his contract last season and his current status with the New York Knicks. That's basically all we've been wondering at this point. If you've been watching Quickley this season, he is looking like Sixth Man of the Year. Immanuel Quickley is him. He is going off for the Knicks coming off of the bench. You gotta love what you're seeing from Immanuel Quickley. I think I speak for a lot of Knicks fans when I say I would love to keep and retain Immanuel Quickley. The problem is this is a business at the end of the day. And when you're talking about business and you're talking about contracts, you're talking about money. Do you want to pay Immanuel Quickley potentially $25 million, $30 million a year just to come off your bench? And if you do that, how do you add more talent to this team? You're going to be having so much money tied up on your bench and other players that you have. And not to mention, Brunson and Randall have a small window because sooner or later, they're both going to be eligible for potential max contracts. And if you pay them that, then how are you adding talent? But going back to this whole thing about Immanuel Quickley, Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype reported the following. The New York Knicks have a lot of guards and rival teams are monitoring whether Immanuel Quickley will become available on the trade market after both sides fail to agree to an extension before the season. Quickley was offered around $18 million per year in extension talks. However, Quickley was looking closer to $25 million annually. I think Quickley might be New York's best trade asset beside Jalen Brunson. That's what an NBA executive told Hoops Hype. No surprise here, if you actually look at one of the interviews that I did in October, I actually had Michael Scotto on the show, and he told me during that interview that the Knicks and Immanuel Quickley were a little bit far off in terms of contract negotiations. Immanuel Quickley did want something up to $25 million, and the New York Knicks were only comfortable giving him something under $20 million. Now we have more or less the rough figures here, and it makes absolute sense. The Knicks wanted to get Immanuel Quickley for a better deal, and Immanuel Quickley wanted to bet on himself and get a bigger deal. And that's all this is here. It's just business. And I think Immanuel Quickley right now is absolutely showing that that move was the right decision. Because if he ends up winning Sixth Man of the Year, and he does even more significance in the playoffs, hopefully the Knicks get there, but it looks like they will. But if the Knicks get to the playoffs and Immanuel Quickley goes off there, the amount of money he's going to be worth then is going to be worth more than $25 million. Might be $30 million. Might be $32 million. I don't know the price. But it's definitely going to be more than $25 million. So the Knicks not paying him $25 now, it's looking like it's going to bite them in the butt. Because now it looks like Immanuel Quickley, if he continues this trajectory, might be worth well over $25 million. And because he's a restricted free agent, the Knicks can match any offer. But desperate teams might have desperate measures, and they might pay Emmanuel Quickley an extremely high amount. And the Knicks might have a Jeremy Lin decision on their hands, whether they want to match it or just let him walk. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But it's good to note that Michael Scotto also noted that another trade asset for the New York Knicks, possibly their best trade asset right now, is Emmanuel Quickley. And I think that means something to the Knicks, because if you're looking to get that star or all-star, Emmanuel Quickley might be that player you need to structure a trade around to get that star on your team. So the Knicks are going to have a very careful decision in mind. Clearly, Michael Scotto reported that many teams are still monitoring Emmanuel Quickley. That's not anything new. We knew that was going to be the case going into the season once the New York Knicks did not extend him. So this report here is not anything new. But, tick-tock, the Knicks have an absolutely important decision to make with Emmanuel Quickley. Whether they trade him, whether they keep him, whether they re-sign him, there's a lot of decisions on the table. Leon Rose and company will have to make those decisions. And those decisions are absolutely going to define how the Knicks fans, how myself, how everybody around the league looks at Leon Rose and his tenure with the Knicks. But what about you guys? What do you think about this entire situation? What do you think about Quentin Grimes potentially being on the trading block for the Knicks? What about Emmanuel Quickley and his contract situation? Do you think the Knicks will pay him upwards over $25 million if he's seeking that this season? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.